So this is part 2 of our gas tank build. In part 1, which was last week, we tried to weld together some thin sheet metal with a flux core welder, and it produced too much heat and warped the metal. Today I want to work on hammering this guy out and trying to flatten out my mistakes essentially on this thing and the warping, trying to even that out again. And I'd like to continue working on this guy here, cutting out some more pieces. Maybe we'll cut out the top and the back side for this guy, and maybe cut out the rest of this stuff and start fitting everything together, and if we're really lucky, start tacking things up. All right, so I'm gonna start working on hammering this thing out. I've done this before, but it's been a while. I just recall it being a bit of an art. You gotta get a good feel going for it, and trying to stretch the little metal out and shrink the little metal and do all these things, get it back to where you want it to go. Alright, so a lot of hammering and bending later, and they're still not straight. They're straight enough though, I think, that I could actually make this work, but the waves are not so acute. They're much more spread out. I have longer waves now, so they're almost long enough that they disappear off the edge of the sheet metal. Anyways, I think that can actually work now. I think it's straight enough that it could be welded in. Since we have pleasantly gotten this far, everything except the bottom is cut to size. We still need to trim that thing down to the right fit. But now I've got our little fuel cap and the little bung. I'm gonna take the bung off the fuel cap. This is the piece that gets welded into our fuel tank. And I'm going to stick it somewhere over here and like off to the side, something like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and punch a hole onto the top before I weld everything on there. And then I might actually even put this on before I weld all that stuff, so I can actually weld it from the bottom. Ooh, that would be neat. All right, so on the frame, we want, again, we're gonna have this thing underneath the frame, and we have some straps coming over, so we want this thing to be on here, and we wanna make sure that it doesn't interfere with our straps or with the frame tube itself. All right, it's time to fire up the TIG welder and get some brazing done. Braze this thing on to the top here first. Damn it! And then I'm gonna tack this thing together with all of these other things. So I have the top and the sides on, and then we'll go about doing the reinforcement on the inside. There it is. That was nerve-wracking to get down there. I definitely need more practice, but it's on. Granted, I put it on the wrong side, so now it's on the right-hand side fill as opposed to the left-hand side fill. So my next step is to try and tack this on to this and these two pieces together. So I had one bad one in the beginning. The very first one was not so great. Had a little struggle there, but then the rest of them kind of got a good technique going. All right, so that is tacked up. Now let's try and tack on the top. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and reposition stuff here a little bit. Just stretch and bend the metal around to where I want it to be. Alright, there it is, tacked up. Alright, so here it is. Now it's cooled off, and one of the things that I just really excites me, whatever, is that this stuff is so thin and weak on its own. You know, like I can just bend this stuff really by hand, but then once it's like welded together in these pieces like this, I feel so strong, man. It's really, I just love that part. So now that we've made it here, my next step is to flip this thing over and start making little braces. I want some braces that go sort of along the sides and the top here. I've got some sheet already cut out here, and this is actually the width I want, because it's the same width we used to make the rest of the tank here. And I like to grab these scrap pieces of tube whenever possible, or pipe, and because I'd like to use them to trace things out and bend things around, and this is going to work out just great. So I'm going to use this, trace out a little arc. And here are little arches that we just cut out. And these guys should fit in here. It fit in there a minute ago. And then we've got to make sure that our fuel pump and everything still fits in here. So, before we get too far. All right, I think that will still function in there. Got some more stuff here. I like to cut out a piece that goes in between those. I'm not sure if that's necessary, but just right down the middle. All right, now I've got this front baffle sort of tilted off at an angle. It's not 90 degrees, so I'm gonna go ahead and find out what angle this is. This angle onto our little strip here. Strip fits in there better, but if you can see, it's lifted off the bottom here because our top has got this curve to it. So we've got to put that same curve on this guy. So to do that, I'm pulling out the template that we used to make the sides of the tank that have that same curve on the top. All right, so here it is. I've got it to fit in there pretty nice. Not too many gaps seeing through. And now I'm just gonna test fit that fuel pump again and make sure it's not interfering with anything in here. All right, I think we're good. Try and tack this stuff in here. All right, and now because I can't really reach down in here with the TIG torch very well, I know, so I'm gonna use the little MIG instead. All right, so that one is in. I've just got a few tacks sort of in the corner here and at the top. And I'm just gonna go ahead and keep building this thing out one little piece at a time. So this guy will go in next. We'll tack that in and then we'll tack the final one in here. All right, so here we go. We're welded up on the inside. We've got our little supports in there. And the reason we did those supports is because I'm planning on hanging the tank. I'm not gonna have anything underneath to support it. It's gonna be supported by hanging off of a top tube on the motorcycle. So I'm gonna braze some threaded rod or whatever on top of here so we can clamp something on top of that. And I'm hoping with all this extra stuff in here, we'll make this top surface quite strong. So that's as far as we made it this week. I was really hoping to get the whole thing tacked up and get everything prepped for final welding on this tank, but we just didn't quite make it there. We kind of ran out of time this week. Next week, we'll definitely get that done. So far with the welding technique, the brazing, I like the brazing a lot better than trying to do the flux core stuff. That was a mistake. I should have started out with brazing in the first part, but I did find it challenging and I needed more practice doing the bung on there, welding the bung to the hole on the top for the fuel cap. That was challenging because it was the thicker metal of the bung welding to the thinner metal of the sheet metal on the tank. That I ran into problems there. Logically, I wouldn't think I would, but clearly there is a difference there. You have to heat up the metal, at least I think so. That you have to heat up the metal sort of to a certain degree to get the brazing to flow to it. I was having trouble getting the brazing to flow to the thicker metal, and that was frustrating. I did get it done, but it's not as neat as I would like or as nice as I would like, and I did get a little bit of warping, and I was actually ended up melting some of the actual metal on the bung and stuff to try and get to the right heat temperatures. And so really playing with the temperatures there was an issue, and hopefully with more practice, obviously that would not be the case. So I should have practiced more on that. I just didn't expect it. Anyways, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. And next week, we'll get this tank together and it's gonna be so cool, man. So cool.